What happens when the weakest wolf in the pack turns out to be the most powerful creature in 1,000 years? For Arya Thorne, life as an Omega meant keeping her head down, her voice quiet, and her dreams small. In the Silvercrest pack, where strength determined worth and hierarchy was law, she'd learned to make herself invisible, to fade into corners during pack gatherings, to accept the scraps left after higher-ranking wolves had eaten, to endure the pitying looks and whispered insults that followed her like shadows. She was the lowest of the low, the weakest link, the wolf who could barely shift without collapsing in exhaustion. But when Alpha Marcus Blackthorne stood before the entire pack on the night of the harvest moon and severed their mate bond with a single, brutal declaration, when he looked into her eyes and said, "I, Marcus Blackthorne, Alpha of Silvercrest, reject you, Arya Thorne, as my mate and Luna," everything changed. And what happens next, no one was prepared for. Not the pack who cast her out to die. Not the parents who'd bound her power since birth. Not the ancient evil stirring in the north. And certainly not Arya herself, who would soon discover that prophecy doesn't make mistakes even when everyone else does. The scent of lavender and morning dew had always marked Arya as different, delicate, forgettable. Tonight, as she stood in the center of the ceremonial circle with 300 wolves watching, that scent was overwhelmed by the sharp tang of her own fear. The harvest moon hung full and heavy overhead, bathing the clearing in silver light. Pack members stood in concentric rings around the raised stone platform where the Alpha ceremonies took place, rituals that bound the pack, settled disputes, and tonight, announced the Alpha's chosen mate. Arya's heart thundered against her ribs. The mate bond had snapped into place 3 months ago during her 20th birthday shift. She'd felt it like a lightning strike, sudden and undeniable, connecting her to Marcus Blackthorne in ways that transcended the physical. The pull toward him. The awareness of his emotions bleeding through their connection. The absolute certainty that the moon goddess had chosen them for each other. She'd told no one. How could she? Marcus was the Alpha King, ruler of the largest pack in the Northern Territories. His scent, forest and embers with undertones of ozone and steel, spoke of dominance and barely leashed power. He stood 6'5" in human form, his wolf a massive black creature that could take down 3 enemies at once. And she was Arya. Omega Arya, who fainted during her first shift at 16. Who couldn't summon enough dominance to make a beta pause, let alone submit. Whose wolf was so small and weak that she'd never been allowed to join pack hunts. But the bond was real. She felt it even now, stretched taut between them as Marcus ascended the platform in ceremonial robes, his beta and gamma flanking him. Elder Silas, ancient and Greyford, raised his staff to call the pack to attention. Tonight, Silas intoned, our Alpha claims his Luna. A wave of power washed over the assembled wolves as Marcus released a fraction of his dominance. Hundreds of heads bowed instinctively. Arya felt her knees weaken, fought to stay upright. Marcus's dark eyes swept the crowd, and for one desperate heartbeat, Arya thought he might acknowledge the bond. Might feel the same pull she did. Might. I call forward Celine Ashford. The world tilted. A female stepped from the front row, her beauty so striking that moonlight itself seemed to favor her. Long red hair cascaded down her back. Her form was all curves and confidence, and her scent, cinnamon and iron with a sharp undertone of blood, announced her as a warrior, a beta female from one of the strongest bloodlines. No, Arya whispered, the word lost in the sudden buzz of excited conversation. Her wolf stirred within, whimpering, confused. Mate, her inner voice insisted. Mate is there. Why is he calling another? Celine ascended the platform with predatory grace, her smile sharp as she took her place beside Marcus. They looked perfect together. 2 powerful wolves, matched in strength and status. Everything a pack needed in its leaders. Everything Arya wasn't. The bond, she breathed, pressing a hand to her chest where phantom pain was beginning to bloom. He has to feel it. Marcus did look at her then. His gaze found her in the crowd with the unerring accuracy of the mate bond, and for a fraction of a second, something flickered in his expression. Recognition. Maybe even regret. Then his face hardened to stone. Before I complete this union, he said, his voice carrying easily over the crowd, I must address a complication. Time stopped. 3 months ago, the moon goddess saw fit to forge a bond between myself and, his lip curled slightly, Arya Thorne. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Heads turned. Arya felt 300 pairs of eyes land on her like physical weights. However, Marcus continued, his tone flat, final, I will not be bound to weakness. I will not saddle this pack with a Luna who can barely shift, who contributes nothing to our strength, who would produce weak heirs and bring shame to the Blackthorne line. Each word was a blade. Arya felt her chest constricting, felt the bond beginning to fray at the edges. Therefore, I, Marcus Blackthorne, Alpha of Silvercrest, reject you, Arya Thorne, as my mate and Luna. I sever this bond by my will and the authority vested in me. The pain was immediate and catastrophic. Arya's knees hit the ground as agony unlike anything she'd ever known tore through her chest. The mate bond, that beautiful, terrible connection, shredded like paper, each strand snapping with audible precision in her mind. Her wolf howled, a sound of such pure anguish that it echoed in her skull. She couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. Could only kneel there in the dirt while her insides were ripped apart. "Guards," Marcus said coldly. "Remove her from Pack Lands. She is no longer one of us." Strong hands grabbed her arms. Arya's vision blurred with tears and pain as two beta wolves hauled her to her feet. Her legs wouldn't support her weight. Blood trickled from her nose, a physical manifestation of the internal destruction. "Please," she managed, looking past the guards to where her parents stood in the crowd. Her father, Thomas, a Gamma warrior. Her mother, Elena, a respected healer. "Mom. Dad. Please." Her mother looked away. Her father's jaw clenched, but he didn't move. "You are cast out," Elder Silas pronounced, and Arya felt the pack bonds, all of them, connecting her to every wolf she'd known since birth, snap one by one by one. The guards dragged her from the circle. Behind her, she heard Marcus continue the ceremony, felt the moment he forged a chosen bond with Selene through sheer force of will. New Luna. New future. No room for broken Omegas. They dropped her at the northern border, where Pack Lands gave way to wild territory. A storm was rolling in, dark clouds obscuring the moon. The temperature was already dropping, and Arya wore only the thin ceremonial dress required for the gathering. "Border law," one guard said, not unkindly. "You cross back, you're executed as a rogue." Then they were gone, and Arya was alone. She tried to shift, desperate for her wolf's fur to protect her from the cold. But the severed bond had left her wolf fractured, unable to respond. Arya collapsed against a tree, shaking violently as the first snowflakes began to fall. This was it, then. The storm would take her. The cold would claim what the rejection had started. "I'm sorry," she whispered to her wolf, to herself, to the moon goddess who'd given her a mate only to watch him throw her away. "I'm so sorry I wasn't enough." The snow fell harder. Arya's vision dimmed at the edges. She didn't try to fight it. Some wolves weren't meant to survive. The cold was a living thing, burrowing into her bones with teeth of ice. Arya didn't know how long she'd been walking. Minutes? Hours? The blizzard had swallowed time itself, reducing the world to howling wind and blinding white. She'd stumbled away from the border on instinct alone, driven by some primitive survival urge even as rational thought slipped away. Her feet were numb. She couldn't feel her fingers. The thin ceremonial dress clung to her skin, soaked through and freezing. Every breath burned her lungs. "Keep moving," something inside her urged. Just keep moving. But she was so tired. Through the sheets of snow, a dark shape materialized, the skeletal remains of an old barn, half collapsed but offering at least some shelter from the wind. Arya crawled more than walked to it, her legs finally giving out as she crossed the threshold into darkness. The wind still found her, whistling through gaps in the rotted wood, but it was better than being fully exposed. Arya pulled herself into the driest corner, curling into a tight ball, trying desperately to conserve what little warmth remained in her body. Her wolf was silent. Still present, but so damaged by the bond severance that she couldn't even offer comfort. Just a wounded presence in the back of Arya's mind, whimpering softly. "It's okay," Arya whispered through chattering teeth. "It's okay to let go." She'd read about death by hypothermia once. How the cold stopped feeling cold after a while. How drowsiness set in, peaceful and gentle. How people often died with small smiles on their faces, dreaming of warmth. It didn't feel peaceful now. It felt like her body was shutting down piece by piece, each system crying out one final time before falling silent. This is it, she thought, and felt a strange sort of acceptance wash over her. No more pain. No more rejection. No more being the weakest, the smallest, the wolf nobody wanted. Her eyes drifted closed. The darkness behind her eyelids was warmer than the world outside. "I'm sorry," she thought one last time. "I wish I could have been more." The darkness swallowed her whole. Warmth. That was the first thing Arya noticed. Blessed, impossible warmth surrounding her like a blanket. She was still too far gone to open her eyes, but consciousness crept back in fragments. Breathing. She could hear breathing that wasn't her own. Multiple sources, rhythmic and deep. Scent. Rich and wild, aged oak and winter snow and pine and storm. Not one wolf. Many. The scent of pack, but different than any pack she'd known. And beneath it all, a thrumming sense of power that made her damaged wolf lift her head and take notice. Arya forced her eyes open. Blinked. Blinked again. Massive shapes surrounded her in the darkness of the barn. She could make out gleaming eyes reflecting what little moonlight penetrated the broken roof. Her heart should have raced with fear, but something stopped it, an instinctive understanding that these wolves meant her no harm. 1. Close enough that she could feel its body heat. An enormous gray wolf with silver markings, its head easily the size of her torso. 2. Black as midnight, battle-scarred, watching her with unusual intelligence. 3. Tawny gold with amber eyes, female, protective posture. 4. Deep brown with white patches, the largest so far. 5. Russet red, lean and alert. 6. Pure white, ghostly in the dim light. 7. Dark gray with black points, positioned by the door. 8. Chocolate brown with green eyes, unusual, powerful. 9. Silver black, young but massive. 10. And at the center, directly in front of her, a wolf that made all the others seem small. This wolf was coal-black with eyes that glowed a deep, ancient gold. Scars crisscrossed his muzzle and shoulders, marks of countless battles survived. His size defied nature, he could have looked a grizzly bear in the eye. The scent of aged oak and winter snow and pine and storm rolled off him in waves, mixed with something else, authority, command, the undeniable presence of an alpha. Please, she managed, looking past the guards to where her parents stood in the crowd. Her father, Thomas, a Gamma warrior. Her mother, Elena, a respected healer. Mom. Dad. Please. Her mother looked away. Her father's jaw clenched, but he didn't move. You are cast out, Elder Silas pronounced, and Arya felt the pack bonds, all of them, connecting her to every wolf she'd known since birth, snap one by one by one. The guards dragged her from the circle. Behind her, she heard Marcus continue the ceremony, felt the moment he forged a chosen bond with Selene through sheer force of will. New Luna. New future. No room for broken Omegas. They dropped her at the northern border, where pack lands gave way to wild territory. A storm was rolling in, dark clouds obscuring the moon. The temperature was already dropping, and Arya wore only the thin ceremonial dress required for the gathering. Border law, one guard said, not unkindly. You cross back, you're executed as a rogue. Then they were gone, and Arya was alone. She tried to shift, desperate for her wolf's fur to protect her from the cold. But the severed bond had left her wolf fractured, unable to respond. Arya collapsed against a tree, shaking violently as the first snowflakes began to fall. This was it, then. The storm would take her. The cold would claim what the rejection had started. I'm sorry, she whispered to her wolf, to herself, to the moon goddess who'd given her a mate only to watch him throw her away. I'm so sorry I wasn't enough. The snow fell harder. Arya's vision dimmed at the edges. She didn't try to fight it. Some wolves weren't meant to survive. The cold was a living thing, burrowing into her bones with teeth of ice. Arya didn't know how long she'd been walking. Minutes? Hours? The blizzard had swallowed time itself, reducing the world to howling wind and blinding white. She'd stumbled away from the border on instinct alone, driven by some primitive survival urge even as rational thought slipped away. Her feet were numb. She couldn't feel her fingers. The thin ceremonial dress clung to her skin, soaked through and freezing. Every breath burned her lungs. Keep moving, something inside her urged. Just keep moving. But she was so tired. Through the sheets of snow, a dark shape materialized, the skeletal remains of an old barn, half collapsed but offering at least some shelter from the wind. Arya crawled more than walked to it, her legs finally giving out as she crossed the threshold into darkness. The wind still found her, whistling through gaps in the rotted wood, but it was better than being fully exposed. Arya pulled herself into the driest corner, curling into a tight ball, trying desperately to conserve what little warmth remained in her body. Her wolf was silent. Still present, but so damaged by the bond severance that she couldn't even offer comfort. Just a wounded presence in the back of Arya's mind, whimpering softly. It's okay, Arya whispered through chattering teeth. It's okay to let go. She'd read about death by hypothermia once. How the cold stopped feeling cold after a while. How drowsiness set in, peaceful and gentle. How people often died with small smiles on their faces, dreaming of warmth. It didn't feel peaceful now. It felt like her body was shutting down piece by piece, each system crying out one final time before falling silent. This is it, she thought, and felt a strange sort of acceptance wash over her. No more pain. No more rejection. No more being the weakest, the smallest, the wolf nobody wanted. Her eyes drifted closed. The darkness behind her eyelids was warmer than the world outside. I'm sorry, she thought one last time. I wish I could have been more. The darkness swallowed her whole. Warmth. That was the first thing Arya noticed. Blessed, impossible warmth surrounding her like a blanket. She was still too far gone to open her eyes, but consciousness crept back in fragments. Breathing. She could hear breathing that wasn't her own. Multiple sources, rhythmic and deep. Scent. Rich and wild, aged oak and winter snow and pine and storm. Not one wolf. Many. The scent of pack, but different than any pack she'd known. And beneath it all, a thrumming sense of power that made her damaged wolf lift her head and take notice. Arya forced her eyes open. Blinked. Blinked again. Massive shapes surrounded her in the darkness of the barn. She could make out gleaming eyes reflecting what little moonlight penetrated the broken roof. Her heart should have raced with fear, but something stopped it, an instinctive understanding that these wolves meant her no harm. 1. Close enough that she could feel its body heat. An enormous gray wolf with silver markings, its head easily the size of her torso. 2. Black as midnight, battle-scarred, watching her with unusual intelligence. 3. Tawny gold with amber eyes, female, protective posture. 4. Deep brown with white patches, the largest so far. 5. Russet red, lean and alert. 6. Pure white, ghostly in the dim light. 7. Dark gray with black points, positioned by the door. 8. Chocolate brown with green eyes, unusual, powerful. 9. Silver black, young but massive. 10. And at the center, directly in front of her, a wolf that made all the others seem small. This wolf was coal-black with eyes that glowed a deep, ancient gold. Scars crisscrossed his muzzle and shoulders, marks of countless battles survived. His size defied nature, he could have looked a grizzly bear in the eye. The scent of aged oak and winter snow and pine and storm rolled off him in waves, mixed with something else, authority, command, the undeniable presence of an alpha. What happens when the weakest member of the pack becomes its greatest threat? For Elara Moonwhisper, life had always been a careful dance of survival. Born an Omega in the Silvercrest pack, she'd learned early that her station demanded silence, obedience, and the crushing weight of invisibility. While alphas strutted through the compound with their chins high and their wolves radiating dominance, while betas formed the backbone of pack society with their steady competence, omegas like her scrubbed floors, prepared meals, and kept their eyes lowered. The moon goddess had blessed her with a gift for healing, hands that could soothe fever, words that could calm the most aggressive wolf, but even that was seen as merely useful, never valued. But when Alpha Matthias Steelclaw stood before the entire pack during the Harvest Moon ceremony and rejected their mate bond with words that cut deeper than any claw, everything changed. And what happens next, no one was prepared for. Not Matthias. Not the pack elders who'd whispered their approval. Not even Elara herself. Because the rejection that was meant to destroy her would instead shatter the chains that had bound her since birth, unleashing a power so ancient that the very mountains would tremble at her awakening. The ceremony had been perfect. Too perfect. Elara should have known. The Great Hall of Silvercrest had been decorated with autumn branches and silver ribbons, hundreds of candles casting dancing shadows across stone walls that had witnessed 1,000 such gatherings. Every member of the pack, all 300 wolves, had assembled in their finest clothes, the air thick with anticipation and the mingled sense of excitement, anxiety, and carefully applied perfumes. The Harvest Moon ceremony came once a year, a night when the moon goddess's light shone strongest, when mate bonds could be formally recognized and pack positions could be challenged or affirmed. Elara had stood in the back, as was proper for an Omega. Her simple gray dress was clean but threadbare, her dark hair pulled into a modest braid. She'd told herself she was only there because attendance was mandatory. She'd tried to ignore the way her wolf had been restless for weeks, pacing and whining inside her chest. She'd tried to pretend she didn't notice how Alpha Matthias's scent, forest smoke and embers with an edge of ozone and steel, made her heart race every time he passed. The mate bond had snapped into place 3 months ago during a routine pack gathering. Elara had been carrying a tray of refreshments when it hit her like a physical blow, a golden thread of connection that wound from her chest directly to the tall, imposing figure of Matthias Steelclaw. She'd nearly dropped the tray. Her wolf had surged forward with a joy so pure it brought tears to her eyes. But Matthias had simply looked at her, his ice-blue eyes cold and calculating, and turned away. For 3 months, she'd waited. The bond pulled at her constantly, an ache in her bones, a whisper in her blood. Wolves who rejected their fated mates faced consequences, physical pain, weakening of their connection to the moon goddess, sometimes even madness. But wolves who accepted inappropriate bonds faced social ruin. An alpha mating with an omega? It was practically unheard of. It was weakness. It was political suicide. Elara had hoped, foolishly, desperately, that perhaps Matthias would choose her anyway. That the bond would be enough. That destiny would matter more than status. She'd been so wrong. Alpha Matthias stepped forward as the ceremony reached its peak, the full moon visible through the great skylight above. He was magnificent, she couldn't deny it, 6.5 feet of corded muscle and raw dominance, his dark hair touched with silver at the temples despite his 30 years, his presence filling the room like a physical force. When he raised his hand for silence, every wolf obeyed instantly. My pack, his voice rolled across the crowd, deep and commanding. Tonight, I formalize a bond that will strengthen Silvercrest for generations to come. Illyra's heart stuttered with hope. Perhaps. I claim Serena Nightshade of the Crimson Valley Pack as my chosen mate and future Luna. Time stopped. A wave of power washed over the assembled wolves as Serena stepped forward, her perfect smile sharp as a blade. She was everything Illyra wasn't, tall, elegant, her auburn hair cascading in perfect waves, her emerald eyes glittering with triumph. Her scent of cinnamon and iron cut through the air. She was the daughter of the Crimson Valley Alpha, a union that would merge two territories and create an unstoppable political force. The bond in Illyra's chest began to fracture. But Alpha Matthias, Elder Rowan's voice quavered from the council platform. The moon goddess has already. I am aware, Matthias cut him off, his eyes scanning the crowd until they landed on Illyra. She couldn't breathe. Every wolf in the hall turned to look at her, hundreds of eyes pinning her in place like a butterfly to a board. I am aware of the complication. Which is why I address it now, publicly, before the pack and the moon goddess herself. He descended from the platform, each step deliberate, until he stood directly in front of Illyra. Up close, his scent was overwhelming, the bond screaming at her to reach for him, to complete what destiny had started. Her wolf whimpered and clawed inside her, confused and desperate. Illyra Moonwhisper, he said, his voice carrying to every corner of the silent hall. The moon goddess has marked you as my fated mate. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Confirmations whispered. Shock and disapproval warred in the scent of the assembled pack. And I, Matthias Steelclaw, Alpha of Silvercrest Pack, formally and publicly reject this bond. The words hit her like silver bullets. Her knees buckled, but she locked them, refusing to fall. Not yet. Not in front of everyone. Do you understand? Matthias continued, his eyes hard. I reject you, Illyra. You are not strong enough, not high enough, not worthy enough to stand at my side. Our bond is severed. Acknowledge it. This was the cruelty of formal rejection, it required her participation. She had to speak the words that would tear her own soul apart. I? Her voice came out as barely a whisper. Her wolf was howling, thrashing, dying inside her. The pain was already starting, a burning in her chest like her heart was being carved out with a hot knife. I acknowledge your rejection. Louder, Matthias commanded. Let the pack hear. Serena laughed, the sound like breaking glass. Several pack members shifted uncomfortably, but no one spoke up. No one defended her. Illyra lifted her chin, looked Matthias directly in his ice-blue eyes, and let every ounce of pain show in her voice. I, Illyra Moonwhisper, acknowledge the rejection of Alpha Matthias Steelclaw. The bond is severed. The golden thread between them turned black. Then it exploded. Illyra screamed. She couldn't help it. The pain was beyond anything she'd ever imagined, like every nerve in her body was being flayed, like her bones were being ground to dust, like her soul was being ripped in half. She collapsed to her knees on the cold stone floor, her hands clutching at her chest where the bond had been. Where now there was only a gaping void. Around her, wolves backed away. Some looked uncomfortable. Most looked satisfied. This was the natural order being restored. Guards, Matthias's voice was emotionless. Remove her from Packlands. She has until sunrise. 2 beta guards hauled her to her feet. Her legs wouldn't support her weight. The pain was still rolling through her in waves, each one stealing her breath. They dragged her toward the doors. Wait, her mother's voice cut through the haze. Illyra's head lifted, hope flickering weakly. Her parents stood near the front, mid-ranking betas, respectable if not powerful. Surely they would. Illyra, her father's face was carved from stone. You brought this shame upon yourself by allowing such a bond to form. You are no longer our daughter. Do not seek shelter with us. Her mother looked away, tears streaming down her face, but she didn't contradict him. The last fragile thread of hope snapped. The guards dragged Illyra out into the night. The harvest moon hung huge and orange above them, beautiful and terrible. They hauled her past the pack borders, past the wards that kept the territory safe, and into the wild forest beyond. Then they released her, letting her crumple to the frozen ground. The Alpha was merciful, one guard said. He could have had you executed for daring to bond with him. They left her there. The temperature was dropping fast. This far north, late autumn nights could kill as surely as any wolf. Illyra tried to stand, but her body wouldn't obey. The pain of the severed bond had settled into a constant agony that made breathing difficult. Her wolf was silent, not gone, but retreating so deep inside that Illyra couldn't feel her presence. She was utterly, completely alone. Snow began to fall. Elara crawled. She had no destination, no plan, only the animal instinct to find shelter. Her fingers were already numb. Her thin dress was useless against the wind that cut through the trees like knives. Blood from scraped palms left dark marks on the white ground. She didn't know how long she crawled. Hours maybe. Or minutes. Time had lost meaning. Then, through the swirling snow, she saw it, a decrepit barn, half collapsed, its roof mostly gone but 3 walls still standing. It wasn't much. But it was something. Elara dragged herself inside and collapsed against the far wall, pulling what remained of her strength around her like a blanket. It wasn't enough. It would never be enough. The storm outside intensified. Wind screamed through the broken boards. Snow drifted through the gaps in the roof, settling on her hair, her shoulders, her lap. She was so cold. So tired. This was how she would die. Rejected, alone, frozen in an abandoned barn. The moon goddess's grand plan for her life. Elara laughed, the sound bitter and broken. Some destiny, she whispered to the darkness. Her eyes drifted closed. The cold was almost comfortable now, a numbness spreading from her extremities inward. The pain of the bond was fading too, or maybe she was just too weak to feel it anymore. This is it, she thought. This is the end. She surrendered to the darkness. Warmth. That was the first thing Elara registered as consciousness crept back. Warmth, when she should be frozen solid. And breathing, not her own shallow gasps, but deep, steady breathing all around her. Her eyes flew open. Wolves. Massive wolves surrounded her in a perfect circle, their bodies pressed close, sharing their heat. She started counting automatically, her mind struggling to process what she was seeing. 1, 2, 3. A gray wolf the size of a small horse, its eyes gleaming gold in the darkness. 4, 5, 6. Black wolves that seemed to absorb the shadows, their presence more felt than seen. 7, 8, 9. A silver wolf that almost glowed, its coat shimmering like moonlight on water. 10. A brown wolf with battle scars across its muzzle, positioned directly in front of her like a guard. 10 wolves. All larger than any wolf she'd ever seen. All watching her with an intelligence that was distinctly human. They'd found her. Somehow, in the blizzard, they'd found her. And instead of killing her, a weak, rejected Omega trespassing on what must be their territory, they'd protected her. They'd kept her alive. Why? Elara whispered, her voice hoarse. The silver wolf stood. Slowly, deliberately, it shifted. The transformation was unlike anything Elara had seen before. Most wolves shifted quickly, bones snapping and reforming in a blur of pain and pragmatism. This was different. This was art. The wolf seemed to flow like liquid silver, bones rearranging with fluid grace, fur receding to reveal skin, muzzle shortening to a human face. The whole process took perhaps 10 seconds, and it was beautiful. The man who stood before her was breathtaking. He was tall, taller even than Matthias, with broad shoulders and a warrior's build, his body covered in scars that spoke of 1,000 battles survived. His hair was white silver, falling to his shoulders, and his eyes were the gray of winter storms. He appeared to be in his 40s, maybe 50s, but with the ageless quality that came with immense power. He radiated authority the way the sun radiated light, effortlessly, undeniably. His scent hit her, aged oak and winter snow, pine and the electric charge of an approaching storm. It was grounding and wild all at once, and her wolf stirred for the first time since the rejection, responding to his presence with curiosity rather than fear. Why? He repeated her question, his voice like distant thunder. He knelt down to her level, his eyes searching her face. Because we've been waiting for you, Elara Moon whisper. Waiting for a very, very long time. The other 9 wolves shifted, one by one, revealing men and women of varying ages, all bearing the same aura of contained power, all watching her with expressions that ranged from awe to fierce protectiveness. I don't understand, Elara managed. Her mind was reeling. Who are you? The silver-haired man smiled, and there was something ancient in it, something that spoke of knowledge and patience beyond human measure. My name is Kale Stormwarden. These are the Sentinel Guard, sworn to protect and serve the Moon Matriarch. He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and placed a warm hand against her cheek. And you, little Omega, are exactly who we've been searching for. There must be a mistake, Elara shook her head, pulling away from his touch even though her wolf whined in protest. I'm nobody. I'm nothing. My own pack just, her voice broke. They rejected me. Cast me out. I'm just an Omega. No, Kale's voice was gentle but absolute. You're not. You never were. One of the women stepped forward, younger than Kale, maybe 30, with short black hair and amber eyes. Her scent carried notes of cedar and rainfall. May I? She asked Kale, who nodded. The woman knelt beside Elara and carefully took her hand. My name is Vera. I'm a seer, I can read the magic that flows through all living things. She closed her eyes, and Elara felt a strange tingling sensation. Oh, Vera breathed, her eyes snapping open. Oh, they bound you. Those absolute fools. They bound you as an infant. Bound me. Elara repeated. What does that mean? Kale's expression had hardened into something dangerous. It means, little one, that someone placed a powerful magical seal on your wolf when you were very young. A seal designed to suppress your true nature, to make you appear as the weakest classification when you are, in fact. He gestured to Vera. The strongest, Vera finished. Your power isn't Omega, Elara. It's not even Alpha. You're something we thought had died out 3 centuries ago. The scent of shock and excitement hung in the air from all 10 guardians. Elara felt like the world was tilting sideways. There's a prophecy, another guard spoke up, a massive man with a shaved head and kind brown eyes, his scent warm like summer earth. I'm Donovan, by the way. The prophecy says, when the moon bleeds red and the weakest falls, the matriarch will rise from death's cold halls. She will be Luna and Alpha both, power-bound by sacred oath. She will come when packs forget their way, and lead the wolves into the new day. The moon bled red tonight, Kale said softly. The harvest moon, orange-red on the horizon. And you fell, Elara. You died, or came close enough. The rejection shattered the binding on your power. I can feel it, Vera said, still holding Elara's hand. The seal cracking. The power underneath starting to wake up. It's incredible. It's terrifying. She looked at Elara with something like reverence. You're going to be magnificent. Elara's breath came in short gasps. This couldn't be real. It had to be a dream, a hallucination brought on by cold and pain and despair. Why would anyone bind my power? She asked. Why would my parents? The words died in her throat as realization hit. Her parents. Her parents who had looked away tonight. Her father who had disowned her without hesitation. They knew. Fear, Kale said simply. When the last matriarch died without an heir, the packs descended into chaos. Wars that lasted decades. Thousands dead. The matriarch holds ultimate authority over all wolves, above even Alpha of Alphas. Some wolves feared that power. Feared what would happen if it returned. His eyes were sad. Your parents likely thought they were protecting you. And protecting themselves. Or they were cowards who valued their comfortable lives over their daughter's destiny, a sharp voice interjected. A red-haired woman with a scar bisecting her left eyebrow glared in the direction of Silvercrest Packlands. Her scent carried the bite of lightning-struck wood. I'm Rhea. I vote we march back there and tear out their throats. Rhea, Kale's voice held warning. What? I'm just saying what everyone's thinking. We are not executioners, Kale said firmly. Then his expression softened as he looked back at Elara. But we are your guardians. Your shield. Your sword. From this moment until our last breath, we serve you. As one, all 10 wolves dropped to one knee, heads bowed. The scent of their loyalty, cedar and stone and steel and storm, washed over Elara like a wave. Her wolf, that broken, beaten thing that had retreated so far inside, suddenly surged forward with a strength that stole Elara's breath. For the first time in her life, her wolf spoke clearly, mine. Protect. Pack. Ours. The pain of the severed mate bond was still there, a dull ache in her chest. But beneath it, something else was stirring. Something vast and powerful and ancient, waking from a sleep that had lasted 23 years. Elara Moonwhisper, rejected Omega, looked at the warriors kneeling before her and felt the first spark of what might, impossibly, be hope. What happens now? She whispered. Kale lifted his head, his storm-gray eyes meeting hers. Now? Now we teach you who you really are. The barn was no place for revelations. Kale swept Elara up in his arms before she could protest, his strength making her weight nothing at all, and the group moved through the forest with supernatural speed. The sentinel guard shifted back to their wolf forms, flowing around Kale like an honor guard, and Elara watched in amazement as they navigated terrain that should have been impassable in the dark. They brought her to a place that seemed pulled from a dream, a massive cave system hidden behind a waterfall, the entrance protected by ancient wards that made the air shimmer. Inside, the caves had been transformed into a sprawling underground haven. Soft light came from bioluminescent moss growing in careful patterns across the walls. Natural hot springs created pockets of steam and warmth. Rooms had been carved from the living stone, furnished with simple but comfortable furniture. This is the Sentinel Keep, Kale explained as he set Elara down gently on a nest of furs beside one of the warm springs. It's been maintained for 300 years, waiting for the matriarch's return. 300 years, Elara repeated numbly. You've been waiting 300 years? Not us personally, Vera said with a small smile, appearing with a bundle of clean clothes and a basin of warm water. But our order, yes. The Sentinel Guard is passed down through bloodlines. We're taught the prophecy from birth. Trained to recognize the signs. She began gently cleaning the cuts on Illyra's hands. Most of us were beginning to think the prophecy was just a story. That we were guarding an empty legacy. And then 6 months ago, I had a vision, Vera continued. Her hands were gentle, her touch radiating a soothing warmth. I saw a wolf the color of starlight, larger than the mountains, with eyes that held galaxies. I saw her emerge from death itself. And I saw her face. She met Illyra's gaze. Your face. That's when we knew it was time, Donovan added. He was building up the fire in a stone hearth, his movements practiced and efficient. We've been searching every pack within 500 miles. Looking for a young female whose power didn't match her designation. Looking for you. But I never showed any power, Illyra protested. I've always been weak. Always been. The binding, Cale interrupted gently. He sat down across from her, his posture relaxed but his attention absolute. Vera, can you explain? The seer nodded, settling beside Illyra. Magical bindings on wolves are incredibly rare and incredibly dangerous. They have to be placed when the wolf is very young, before their power fully manifests. Whoever did this to you, probably your parents, possibly with the help of a witch, they wove a seal directly into your soul. Every time your power tried to surface, the seal pushed it back down. Made you appear weaker than you were. Made you feel like an Omega. But I have Omega traits, Illyra argued. I can heal. I'm empathic. All matriarchs have those gifts, Cale said. Enhanced empathy, the ability to soothe and heal, a connection to the moon goddess that transcends normal pack bonds. These aren't Omega traits. They're royal ones. The designation system, Alpha, Beta, Omega, it's a pale echo of what werewolves used to be, before the matriarch line ended. Rhea laughed from where she was sharpening a wicked-looking knife. You know what the best part is? That pompous Alpha who rejected you? He just made the biggest mistake of his life. He didn't just reject his mate. He rejected his queen. A wave of power washed over Illyra, so sudden and intense that she gasped. It started in her chest, right where the mate bond had been, and spread outward like fire through her veins. Her wolf surged forward again, stronger this time, no longer whimpering but growling with awakening fury. It's starting, Vera said urgently. Cale, the seal is breaking. We need to get her to the transformation chamber now. Everything happened very fast. Cale lifted Illyra again, and the group moved deeper into the cave system, descending through passages that grew warmer and more luminous. They emerged into a vast circular chamber with a ceiling that opened to the sky, moonlight pouring down to illuminate a pool of perfectly still water. This is sacred ground, Cale said, setting Illyra down at the edge of the pool, where matriarchs have transformed for thousands of years. Your wolf wants to emerge, Illyra. For the first time in your life, she wants to be free. You need to let her. I don't know how, Illyra admitted. The power building inside her was terrifying in its intensity. It felt like she was going to explode. Normal shifting, I can do. But this feels different, Cale finished. Because it is. This isn't just shifting. This is awakening. Trust your wolf. She knows what to do. The Sentinel Guard arranged themselves around the chamber, standing like ancient sentries. Their scents wove together, oak and storm, cedar and rain, summer earth, lightning wood, and others she was just beginning to recognize, creating a tapestry of safety and expectation. Illyra closed her eyes and reached inside, past the pain of rejection, past the fear and confusion, to where her wolf waited. And her wolf reached back. The transformation began. It started slowly, almost gently. A tingling in her fingertips that spread up her arms. Warmth blooming in her chest. But then it intensified. Her bones began to flow, not snapping and breaking like a normal shift, but flowing like liquid metal being poured into a new mold. It should have hurt. Instead, it felt like relief, like she was finally becoming what she was always meant to be. Fur emerged, not the brown or gray she'd expected, but silver-white that seemed to glow with its own internal light. It spread across her skin like starlight, soft and shining. Her senses sharpened to an almost painful degree, she could hear heartbeats, could smell the individual scents of all 10 guardians, could feel the air currents against her changing form. Her body grew. And grew. And grew. She could feel Vera's awe in the air, Donovan's fierce pride, Rhea's savage joy. Cale's scent was pure satisfaction, like a master craftsman watching his life's work take shape. Her spine extended, her limbs lengthened, muscles building and rebuilding. Her face pushed forward into a muzzle, teeth sharpening into gleaming fangs. And through it all, energy poured into her, pulling from the moon above, from the earth below, from some vast reservoir that had been locked away her entire life. When the transformation completed, Ilara stood on 4 legs for the first time in her true form. She was massive. Larger than any alpha she'd ever seen, larger even than Kale's impressive wolf form. Her paws were the size of dinner plates, her shoulders higher than a grown man's head. When she looked down at her reflection in the pool, she saw eyes that glowed with an ethereal violet light, swirling with silver flecks like a nebula. Her wolf's voice was clear and strong in her mind. Finally. Finally. Free. Ilara lifted her head and howled. The sound shook the chamber. It echoed through the cave system, burst out into the night sky, rolled across the forest like thunder. It was joy and rage and power and promise all woven into one primal song. And from the forest beyond, from miles and miles away, she heard Howl's answer. Confused. Frightened. Awed. The sentinel guard shifted as one, their massive forms still dwarfed by hers, and added their voices to her song. 10 howls in perfect harmony with her own. When silence fell, Kale shifted back to human form, his eyes bright with tears. She is the matriarch, he said, his voice carrying the weight of ritual. The queen of wolves. The moon's daughter. The prophecy is fulfilled. Ilara shifted back, the transformation flowing as naturally as breathing now. She stood naked and unashamed in the moonlight, power crackling across her skin like visible electricity. She felt different. She was different. The weak, frightened Omega was gone. In her place stood something ancient and terrible and beautiful. I am, she said, her voice resonating with an authority she'd never possessed before. I am the matriarch. Her first shift had changed everything. But knowing what she was and controlling it were very different things. The days that followed, and they did become days, Ilara losing track of how many as she trained, were a revelation. Kale proved to be a patient teacher, guiding her through the basics of her new abilities with a steady hand. Your power is tied to emotion, he explained during one session, watching as Ilara practiced shifting between forms. Most wolves fight their emotions during transformation. You need to embrace them. Channel them. Ilara shifted again, the transformation faster this time, smoother. Her wolf form still took her breath away every time, the sheer size and strength of it, the way the world became sharper and clearer. Good, Kale praised. Now shift back, but this time, hold on to your wolf senses. Matriarchs can use their enhanced abilities even in human form. It took a dozen tries, but eventually Ilara managed to shift back while keeping the wolf's heightened smell and hearing. The world became overwhelming. She could hear conversations in the training chamber 3 levels down, could smell that Rhea had been working with steel and oil, that Donovan was making breakfast. It's too much, she gasped. Learn to filter, Kale advised. Focus on what matters. Let the rest become background noise. But shifting was just the beginning. Under Vera's tutelage, Ilara discovered that her empathic abilities had grown exponentially. She could feel the emotions of everyone around her, not just vague impressions, but precise, detailed awareness. Vera's calm certainty, Kale's protective pride, Rhea's restless energy. This is your gift as a healer, Vera explained. But it's also a weapon. Emotions drive us. If you can sense them, you can influence them. That sounds like manipulation, Ilara said uneasily. It can be, Vera agreed. Which is why you must be careful. Use it to calm someone in pain, to soothe fear, to bring peace. Never to control. The healing abilities came naturally. When one of the younger guards, a quiet man named Finn with a scar across his jaw, injured his arm during training, Ilara found herself reaching for the wound instinctively. Her hands glowed with soft silver light, and she could feel the torn muscle knitting back together beneath her touch. Incredible, Finn breathed. It doesn't even hurt. But the most startling ability was what Kale called the Alpha Command, though for a matriarch, it was far more powerful. Every Alpha can project their will, make lower-ranked wolves obey, Kale explained. But a matriarch's command is absolute. No wolf, regardless of rank, can resist it. Use it carefully. Use it sparingly. It's not about forcing obedience, it's about establishing authority when nothing else will suffice. Ilara practiced on the guards, who volunteered themselves willingly. She would issue a simple command, sit, or be still, and watch as they instantly obeyed, unable to do otherwise. The power was intoxicating and terrifying. I don't like it, she admitted after one session. Taking away someone's choice. Good, Kale said firmly. A leader who enjoys controlling others is a tyrant. A leader who understands the weight of that power is a queen. As her abilities grew, so did her bond with the Sentinel Guard. They weren't just protectors, they were becoming her family. Her pack in a way Silvercrest had never been. She learned their stories. Kale, who had lost his mate and child to a rogue attack 50 years ago and had devoted his life to the Sentinel cause. Vera, who had been born with her seer abilities and ostracized by her pack until the guard found her. Donovan, who had been beta of a large pack before walking away from politics to pursue a higher calling. Rhea, it turned out, had a wicked sense of humor to match her sharp tongue. She taught Elara combat techniques, moving with a deadly grace that made every motion look like a dance. "The alpha who rejected you," Rhea said during one sparring session, circling Elara in her wolf form. "What are you going to do about him?" Elara, also in wolf form, matched her movements. "What do you mean?" "I mean, word is going to get out eventually that you're alive. That you're more than alive, that you're the matriarch. When that happens, he's going to come crawling back. They always do." Rhea's scent carried bitter amusement. "The question is, what will you do?" "I don't know," Elara admitted. The mate bond was still severed, she felt only the faint ghost of what it had been. "Part of me wants revenge. Part of me wants him to suffer the way I suffered." "Both valid," Rhea acknowledged. But that wouldn't make me a good leader. A good queen." Elara shifted back to human, breathing hard from the exertion. "I don't want to rule through fear and vengeance." Rhea shifted as well, her expression thoughtful. "Mercy and justice aren't the same thing. Remember that. There were others in the guard, each unique. Silas, the tracker, who could follow a scent trail weeks old. Maya, the strategist, whose mind worked 3 steps ahead of everyone else. Cashin and Thorn, twin brothers who fought as a single unit. Lyra, the youngest at barely 25, with a gift for communication with all animals, not just wolves. And Marcus, the weapons master, who seemed to have an arsenal hidden in every shadow. They trained her, tested her, protected her. And slowly, Elara began to believe what they'd told her from the beginning. She was the matriarch. The queen of wolves. Days turned to weeks. Elara's control grew from shaky to steady to nearly flawless. She could shift in seconds, could maintain her enhanced senses indefinitely, could heal injuries that would have crippled a normal wolf. The power that had terrified her at first became as natural as breathing. "You're ready," Kale said one evening as they stood at the entrance to the Sentinel Keep, watching the sun set through the waterfall spray. "Ready for what?" Elara asked. "For whatever comes next," he said cryptically. His storm-gray eyes met hers. "The world is going to know you exist soon. Word spreads, even in our isolated corner. When it does, everything will change." As if his words were prophetic, Maya came running up the path, her face urgent. "We have a problem. A rogue wolf crossed into our territory an hour ago. Silas is tracking them, but..." She hesitated. "They're wearing Silvercrest colors. They're a scout." The scent of anger washed off Kale like a wave. "They're looking for her." "Let them find me," Elara said quietly. The words surprised her, but they felt right. "I'm tired of hiding." "Elara," Kale started. "I'm the matriarch," she interrupted, letting a thread of command enter her voice. All 10 guards stopped what they were doing and turned to her. "I don't hide. Not anymore. If Silvercrest wants to see what became of the Omega they threw away, then let's show them." Rhea's laugh was sharp and fierce. "Now that's what I'm talking about." But it wasn't Matthias who came. 3 days after the scout was spotted, a war party arrived. 23 wolves, all alpha or high beta rank, all bearing the silver and black colors of Silvercrest pack. And leading them wasn't Matthias at all. It was Serena Nightshade, the woman he'd chosen instead. The Sentinel Guard had detected them an hour before they reached the keep. Kale had wanted to engage them in the forest, but Elara had another idea. "Let them come to us," she said. "Let them see what they're dealing with." So they waited at the entrance to the keep, all 11 of them. The Sentinel Guard in their human forms, armed and dangerous. And Elara, standing at the center, wearing simple leather armor that Lyra had helped her make. The Silvercrest war party emerged from the forest, and Elara's enhanced senses caught everything. The scent of aggression and confidence rolling off them. The way they moved in perfect formation. The absolute certainty in their eyes that they would crush whatever resistance they found. Serena shifted to human form at the front, several wolves doing the same behind her. She was dressed for war, leather armor reinforced with silver, weapons strapped to her back and thighs. Her cinnamon and iron scent was sharp with anticipation. "Well," Serena said, her voice dripping false sweetness. "The little Omega survived after all. How disappointing." "Serena Nightshade," Elara said calmly. "You're trespassing on protected territory. Leave now, and I'll forget this incursion." Serena laughed, the sound cutting. "Protected? By who?" "These misfits." She gestured dismissively at the Sentinel Guard. "I counted. There are 11 of you and 23 of us. And we're all alphas or high betas. You're outmatched, little Omega." "I'll give you one more chance," Elara said, and this time she let power leak into her voice. "Just a hint. Just enough to make the wolves at the back of Serena's party shift uneasily. Leave. Now. Matthias sent me to bring you back, Serena continued as if Elara hadn't spoken. Apparently, there are rumors. Rumors of a powerful wolf in these territories. He wants to make sure it's not you. Her smile was cruel. Though clearly, it can't be. You're still just a weak, pathetic Omega playing dress up. Is that what you think? Elara asked softly. It's what I know, Serena stepped forward. And since you won't come quietly, I'm authorized to use force. Alpha Matthias will understand if you're a little damaged when I drag you back. She shifted and lunged in the same motion, her wolf form a blur of auburn fur and snapping jaws. Elara didn't even try to dodge. She simply caught Serena mid-lunge with one hand, her supernatural speed making the movement almost casual. Serena's wolf form hung in the air, Elara's hand around her throat, all of her momentum stopped like she'd hit a wall. Time seemed to stop. Elara shifted. The transformation was instantaneous, power flooding her body as she became the massive silver wolf with violet eyes. Serena, still in her grip, suddenly looked very, very small. Elara threw her. Serena flew backward 20 feet, crashed into 3 of her own wolves, and all 4 went down in a tangle of limbs and yelps. The entire war party froze, their aggression turning to shock, shock turning to fear. Elara shifted back to human, not even breathing hard. Anyone else? The Silvercrest wolves backed up, their formation breaking. One of them, a young male who couldn't have been more than 20, dropped to his belly in automatic submission. Then another. Then another. No, Serena snarled, pulling herself up from the ground. Her wolf form was battered, one of her legs clearly injured. No. She's nothing. She's the matriarch, Kale said, his voice carrying across the clearing with absolute authority. Show some respect to your queen. And then the sentinel guard shifted. One by one, they took their true forms, and they were glorious. Each one was massive, larger than any normal wolf, larger even than typical alphas. Dire wolves from ancient bloodlines, bred and trained for centuries for one purpose only. Kale's silver form seemed to glow with internal light. Vera's midnight black coat absorbed the shadows. Donovan's brown fur was marked with symbols that looked like they'd been carved by the gods. Rhea's red coat crackled with energy. The others were equally magnificent, Silas like a living shadow, Maya with eyes that saw everything, the twins moving as a perfect mirror, Lyra whose howl could command the very birds, Marcus whose form bristled with barely contained violence, and Finn whose scarred face told stories of survival. They formed a wall around Elara, and the message was clear: to reach her, you go through us. The Silvercrest war party broke completely. Wolves scattered, some running outright, others dropping into submission so deep they were practically trying to sink into the ground. Only Serena remained standing, though her wolf was shaking. This isn't possible, she whispered. You're nothing. I was nothing, Elara agreed. When Matthias rejected me, when your pack cast me out, I was nothing. But his rejection broke the seal on my power. His cruelty freed me. His mistake. She smiled, showing teeth. His mistake made me a queen. Serena lunged again, desperation overriding sense. Elara sidestepped easily, grabbed Serena's wolf by the scruff, and slammed her down into the ground. Held her there with one hand while Serena struggled and snarled. Do you yield? Elara asked. Never. Elara increased the pressure just slightly. Do you yield? Serena went still, her entire body radiating defeat. I yield. Elara released her and stepped back. Serena shifted to human, her perfect face now bleeding from a split lip, her expensive armor torn. She looked up at Elara with pure hatred. Matthias will kill you for this, she hissed. Then he can try, Elara said simply. But first, he has to get through my guard. And something tells me he's not that stupid. As if summoned by his name, the forest behind the war party stirred. Wolves emerged, more wolves, dozens of them. The rest of Silvercrest pack. And at their head, in his magnificent black wolf form, was Matthias Steelclaw himself. He shifted to human, and even now, Elara could acknowledge he was impressive. But the ghost of their severed mate bond didn't ache anymore. It was just, gone. Dead. Replaced by something far more powerful. Matthias's ice-blue eyes swept the scene, his scattered war party, his battered chosen mate, the 10 massive dire wolves, and Elara standing at the center of it all like she'd been born to command. The scent of realization and fear washed off him. Elara, he said, and for the first time since she'd known him, his voice was uncertain. What are you? Didn't you hear? Elara let power leak into her voice, watched as every wolf in the clearing, including Matthias, fought the urge to submit. I'm the matriarch. The queen of wolves. The being your pack's prophecy spoke of. She tilted her head. You rejected your fated mate, Matthias. You broke our bond to gain power through a political alliance. And in doing so, you freed the most powerful wolf in existence. Congratulations. That might be the single most spectacular failure in werewolf history. Matthias's face went through a dozen emotions: disbelief, anger, fear, and finally, devastating comprehension. He dropped to one knee. Behind him, the entire Silvercrest pack did the same, a wave of submission rolling across the clearing. Mercy, Matthias said, the word clearly tasting like ash. My queen. I beg mercy for my pack. Elara could feel the sentinel guard's readiness. One word from her, and they would destroy every wolf here. One command, and she could have vengeance for every moment of suffering, every humiliation, every lonely night. But Rhea's words echoed in her mind: mercy and justice aren't the same thing. Stand up, Elara commanded. Matthias stood slowly, his eyes never leaving hers. You rejected me, Elara said, her voice carrying to every wolf in the clearing. You humiliated me in front of the pack. You cast me out to die. Your actions were cruel and unjust. She paused, letting the weight of those words sink in. But they were also the greatest gift you could have given me. Because in rejecting me, you freed me. You broke the seal that bound my power. You made me who I am today. She stepped forward, and Matthias actually flinched. So here is my judgment, Elara continued. Matthias Steelclaw, you are stripped of your position as Alpha of Silvercrest Pack. Serena Nightshade, your political marriage is dissolved. Both of you will spend the next year in service, true service, to the weakest members of your pack. You will clean, you will serve, you will learn what it means to be at the bottom. Matthias's face went pale. Serena made a sound of outrage. After 1 year, Elara spoke over them, if you have shown true growth and understanding, your ranks may be restored. But you will never lead Silvercrest again. She turned to address the entire pack. Silvercrest pack needs new leadership. Leadership that understands that strength comes from lifting others up, not stepping on them. She pointed to an older woman in the crowd, one of the pack elders who had looked uncomfortable during Elara's rejection. Sage Moonrunner. You spoke against my rejection, however quietly. You will serve as interim alpha until a proper election can be held. Do you accept? The woman looked stunned. Yes, my queen. I accept. Good. Elara's eyes swept the crowd one final time. And let this be a lesson to every pack under my authority, and make no mistake, all packs are under my authority as matriarch. The old ways of rigid hierarchy, of crushing those deemed weaker, of valuing power over compassion, those ways end now. We are wolves. We are predators. But we are also family. We protect. We nurture. We lift each other up. A wave of power washed over the clearing, and every wolf felt it, a change in the very air, in the fabric of what it meant to be part of the pack structure. I am Elara Moonwhisper, the Moon Matriarch, she declared. This is my territory, and these lands are under my protection. Anyone who wishes to challenge that. She shifted partially, her eyes glowing violet, her power crackling across her skin. I welcome you to try. Silence. Then, from the back of the Silvercrest pack, one wolf howled. A sound of acknowledgement. Of acceptance. Of joy. Another joined. Then another. Within seconds, every wolf in the clearing was howling, not in submission, but in celebration. The matriarch had returned. The prophecy was fulfilled. Even Matthias, his face a mask of complex emotion, added his voice to the chorus. And when Elara looked at Kale, saw the fierce pride in his storm-gray eyes, felt the absolute loyalty of her sentinel guard surrounding her like a shield. She finally understood. This was her destiny. Not to be a weak Omega suffering in silence. But to be a queen who would reshape the world. The howling faded, and Elara raised her hand. Go home, she told the Silvercrest wolves. Begin your new chapter. I will visit in 1 month to see your progress. Disappoint me. She let the threat hang. They went. Matthias and Serena last, both shooting looks over their shoulders, his filled with regret and something that might have been longing, hers filled with pure hatred. When they were gone, Rhea burst out laughing. That was spectacular. Did you see Serena's face when you threw her? I thought you were going to kill them, Vera admitted. I was prepared for it. So was I, Elara said honestly. But killing them would have been easy. Making them live with their mistakes, making them grow from them, that's harder. For them and for me. Kale approached, his human form as commanding as his wolf. You showed wisdom beyond your years today, he said. A true queen's mercy. Learn from the best, Elara replied, smiling at him. His returning smile was warm. Then his expression grew serious. You know this changes everything. Word will spread like wildfire. Every pack for 1,000 miles will know the matriarch has returned. Let them know, Elara said, feeling the certainty settle into her bones. Let them all know. A new era begins today. 3 months passed. The Sentinel Keep became the center of a quiet revolution. Wolves from packs across the territories came seeking an audience with the matriarch, some believing, some skeptical, all leaving convinced. Elara mediated disputes, dissolved unjust hierarchies, protected the weak, and punished the cruel. She visited Silvercrest as promised and found genuine change taking root. Matthias worked in the pack kitchens, his hands rough from labor, his pride battered but his understanding growing. Serena had tried to flee and been brought back. She served now in the pack infirmary, forced to use her intelligence for healing rather than manipulation. Elder Sage was proving to be a fair and competent leader. Elara's parents came, eventually. They knelt before her and confessed everything, how they'd been approached by a witch when Elara was just 6 months old, how the witch had warned them their daughter carried the matriarch's power, how they'd been terrified of what that would mean. The binding had been their choice, made from fear. I don't forgive you, Elara told them honestly. Not yet. Maybe not ever. You stole 23 years of my life. You let me suffer when you could have helped me understand. She paused. But I don't hate you either. I pity you. You were cowards who chose comfort over courage. Now you have to live with that. They left broken but alive, which was more mercy than they'd shown her. The Sentinel Guard remained her constant companions, her found family. Kale especially. The bond between them wasn't the fated mate bond she'd had with Matthias, this was something chosen, something built through respect and trust and growing affection. He was patient and strong and understood her in ways no one else could. One evening, as they stood together at the entrance to the keep watching stars emerge, Kale took her hand. You've done it, he said softly. You've become everything the prophecy foretold. Everything we hoped for. We've done it, Elara corrected. I couldn't have done this alone. You could have, Kale disagreed. But I'm grateful you didn't want to. She looked up at him, at this man who had saved her life, who had taught her strength, who had never once asked for anything in return. Kale, I know the mate bond with Matthias is gone, he said. I know you may never want another bond like that. But I want you to know. I choose you, Elara. Not because of prophecy or duty. Because of who you are. Because you're brilliant and kind and powerful and you make me want to be better. Her wolf stirred, pleased and certain, yes. This one. Choose this one. I choose you too, Elara said, and kissed him as the moon goddess's light bathed them both in silver. The bond that formed between them wasn't gold like the fated bonds. It was silver and violet, swirling with starlight, stronger than destiny because it was chosen freely by two souls who understood exactly what they were accepting. And in that moment, Elara Moonwhisper was truly complete. But peace never lasts forever. On the first night of the blood moon, a rare lunar eclipse that turned the moon deep crimson, Elara woke from a dream that felt like prophecy. She saw shadows moving in the north, ancient things waking from long slumber. She saw a figure cloaked in darkness, their eyes burning with hatred for everything she'd built. She saw war coming. Kale found her standing at the keep's entrance, staring north. What is it? A new threat, Elara said, her voice steady despite the ice in her veins. Something old. Something angry. Something that doesn't want the matriarch's return. The Sentinel Guard assembled around them, 10 warriors ready to face whatever came. Then we'll face it, Kale said simply. Together. Elara nodded, feeling the weight of leadership settle more firmly on her shoulders. She had been a rejected Omega. She had become a queen. And now, she would become a warrior. Together, she agreed. The blood moon hung overhead, and in its crimson light, Elara Moonwhisper, the moon matriarch, queen of wolves, prepared for the battles ahead. And so Elara's journey from broken Omega to sovereign matriarch became legend. She had been rejected, cast out, left to die. Instead, she had risen from death's cold embrace to reclaim a throne 3 centuries empty. She learned that true strength wasn't about dominance, but about lifting others. That true power came not from forcing submission, but from earning loyalty. That mercy and justice could coexist if one had the wisdom to know when to use each. The moral of her tale? Sometimes what seems like our greatest loss is actually our greatest liberation. Sometimes the rejection that breaks us is exactly what we need to become whole. And sometimes, just sometimes, the weakest among us carries the strength to change the world. What do you think happened when Elara faced the ancient threat from the north? Do you believe Matthias truly learned from his mistakes? Could you forgive parents who bound your power out of fear? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this tale of transformation and triumph, please like this video and share it with someone who needs to hear that their rejection might just be their redemption in disguise. Subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss the next chapter of Elara's story. Because this is just the beginning. The ancient evil stirs. the blood moon rises. And the moon matriarch must defend everything she's built. Thank you for listening to this chapter of Elara's journey. We'll see you in the next one, where the real war begins. Until the moon rises again, stay wild.